Hey everyone, I'm Robert Yang. I teach game development and coding over at NYU and Parsons School of Design. And I'm also an experienced indie game developer as well. There's my Twitter thing at the bottom of the screen, Radiator Yang, if you want to complain about me or something. I'm here to give you a very special talk about SEX. Do we know what that spells? Sex. Exactly. Good job. First, a brief content warning. This is in the talk description, but in case you didn't get it, I want to make sure you do. There's quite a bit of sexual imagery in this talk. And discussion of sex in this talk, and some of the games I discuss also have kind of BDSM and bondage and themes where you like inflict pain on each other. Please be mindful of your own boundaries and safety. Feel free to leave at any time if you're feeling uncomfortable. Oh, even more water. I'm really thirsty. Feel free to leave at any time if you're feeling uncomfortable, including like right now as I'm saying this. It's okay. I really don't mind. Okay. Let's talk sex games. So, sex games. You're probably thinking of like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or like Hot Ryu or Mario and Luigi or even games like Fallout that like support gay role playing with like specific mechanics and stuff. And those are like okay sex games, like I guess. If you want to like settle for that. But none of these games are like really like about sex, right? They're about like jumping around and killing shit and stuff, which is great. I love that, but it's not gay sex. That's true, right? So take something like Dragon Age, which is very popular among a lot of people here for its gay characters and sexuality. But the sad, sad truth is that 99.9% of Dragon Age is not gay sex. I did a very scientific study. It's shocking, but it's the truth. So why do we demand so much gay sex from this thing that can't possibly satisfy us in this regard, right? Dragon Age can't be more than 0.1% gay sex. What if we just cut out all those boring not gay sex bits out of games? What if we just made games that were just 100% pure gay sex? Why not? What would those games look like? Another world is possible. And that world is sex games. Yay! Because if you are just so like thirsty, like don't settle for this thimble of water, you know? Like instead you just gotta like, you know, like you know, you really just gotta drink the whole bottle. So I would say a sex game is a game that's primarily about sexuality. It's not about jumping around and killing stuff, unless that's like your kink or something. It's about what it means to do sex, oftentimes as well. These are games about sex. They're about what it means to do sex, and they do the work of asking what it means to do sex, and they're very concerned with that. It's kind of tricky to define like what sex is, you know, like sex isn't even like real really. So I'm going to go with this kind of fairly like theoretical definition a little bit, and I'm going to come back to it a lot. Sex is a negotiation between bodies. You know, and ideally like the bodies are like unclothed to some degree or something, and ideally the negotiation is like kind of sexy and stuff. Over the past year, I've been making a lot of free gay sex games. Maybe you've seen some of them. They've gotten millions of views on YouTube and hundreds of thousands of downloads. PewDiePie like follows me on Twitter. I'm like his like source of content or something. You might have heard about some of them. All 5 of the games that I've released so far, they share a lot of themes. They're all mouse-based, simple to play, kind of short, and they all wonder, what if we used these like expensive-looking photorealistic graphics for love instead of war? The first game I made was called Hurt Me Plenty. Hurt Me Plenty is a game about spanking this hunky dude. But you kind of have to negotiate also how to play out the spanking scene. Then also do some aftercare after you spank him. So you kind of listen to his feelings and caress him and reassure him that he's loved and wanted and stuff. But if you kind of abuse him, if you violate his boundaries, keep spanking him even though he invokes his safe word, he will refuse to play with you. And he will lock you out of the game for up to 20 days, depending on how bad of a person you are. This works really great in public exhibitions when there's a line of people waiting to play this game, and then one person thinks he's just hot shit, so he violates the boundaries of the game and basically locks the game for the rest of the event for everyone. And now no one else can play. So it's kind of a game about how like your actions can hurt your partner, but you can also hurt the community when you hurt one person as well. Succulent is Succulent is a very different kind of game. Succulent is a game where you help a guy eat a popsicle. It's very straightforward. You might wish you were the popsicle or something, but sometimes I feel like gay men and our gay male culture often gets obsessed with certain types of like body types and masculinities. So this one, I actually have 3 copies of the same guy to emphasize how he's like a specific type. And this obsession with a type can devour us, and we disappear like that popsicle, and that's a little bit dangerous and scary. Fantasies are great, but fantasies also like have politics to them, and we need to like acknowledge our attitudes towards those things. Stick Shift is another game about politics and gestures. In this game, you basically give a gay car a hand job. And as you jack off your car, it's like to a car, I guess, like a really good, I'm not a car, so I wouldn't know, but I'm assuming a really good hand job would involve really being like a master of manual transmission, right? Shifting your car smoothly from first gear to second to third to fourth to fifth without stalling, and until both driver and car climax. And then in this game, you actually have to wait 10 to 20 minutes before playing again because of your refractory period. If you don't know what a refractory period is, ask an adult. But there's also a completely random chance the cops will arrest you while driving, while being gay with your car. And it's completely random. It's supposed to feel kind of unfair, like you're being cheated, because that's what being policed as a minority often feels like. So I wanted to replicate that experience. Cobra Club is a dick pic photo studio game. You take lots of dick pics. You can put like Instagram filters on them. You can like add sparkles. You can also like adjust your girth and length and everything. You can also chat with your fellow members. More people should have gotten that joke. They will ask to see your dick pic, or you can ask to see their dick pic, and you can say yes or no. It's kind of like an ideal consensual dick pic like community. But while you're doing this, the game is also kind of violating your consent by secretly sending your dick pics to a government spy agency without your consent. And then at the end you find out that the NSA has all your dick pics. So it's kind of arguing about how like dick pics, much like democracy, require privacy and respect, and warrantless mass surveillance would destroy both. I actually got so many dick pics, it was crashing my server. It was like, I was like panicking. But yeah, that's Cobra Club. And then the last game I want to talk about is my most recent game, Rinse and Repeat. Rinse and Repeat is the most technologically advanced male shower simulator ever made. I want players to like anticipate washing this like beefy hunky dude and like obeying his commands. So he'll say like, "Oh, scrub my ass," and then you have to scrub his ass. The thing is, you can only like wash him at like certain times. So like after his Zumba class, he'll be in the showers. So like then you kind of have to set yourself like a reminder in like real life on your phone to be like, okay, I'm gonna play at like 4 p.m. on Mondays. That's when his Zumba class is out. So that's when you have to boot up the game and play it. So it's kind of like I want the player to be kind of like submissive to the game. Hurt Me Plenty was about being like a top or a dominant. This one's kind of being more like submissive, and you have to like mold your life around the game instead of the game kind of adapting to your life instead. And then here's and those are like my like the wet shower body sim. I worked really hard on those. Thank you, God. And then my currently in development game is called Attract Mode. It's a virtual gay bar simulator. You're constantly like scoping out dudes around the gay bar, and also like scoping out their profiles on like your cruising app and stuff. And most of the men will ignore you and pretend you don't exist, so it's extremely realistic. And what do I have there? On that like top left screen, that's like I actually have like an AI director directing all these gay men around the bar. It's pretty complicated, maybe too complicated. And that's currently in development. I'm working on it right now. I don't know when I'll finish it. Maybe like next year at some point. So those are all the sex games that I've made so far this past year. I don't want to pretend I'm the only one making these games. So that's why that's just a little bit of my talk. The rest of my talk, I want to talk about games that are part of this. It's part of this larger shift, I think, among a lot of designers. It's not just me. We want to imagine what sex games can look like. Maybe they wouldn't call their games sex games, but I would propose we can think of them as sex games. The sex in my sex games is just one type of sex, right? There's so many different types of sex, and we should try to think about them and kind of celebrate them all. Now, the games I'm going to tell you about, they're not from the AAA game industry, because those companies have marketing budgets, so you'll hear about them. It's mostly about, I'm going to be mostly discussing like Western English-speaking artists as well, just because that's my situation. There's so many other communities, gay sex game communities, but I'm not too familiar with them. Someone else will have to give that really important talk. Just generally all these games will have kind of sexual aesthetics and interactions. I'm also going to have a very like inclusive definition of what I mean by gay sex. It'll mean anything other than cis heteromonogamous dad missionary sex, which is pretty gay. Okay. Next. First, I want to talk about games that are really about sex as bodies, and they're really interested in like shapes of bodies and all the different types of bodies we can think about in games and sex. The first game I want to talk about is the game that inspired the title of this talk. It's called Sabbat. Woo, Sabbat, yay. Sabbat is a game where you turn into this awesome monster by like imbuing your body parts with demonic animal power. So you like imbue your hair with like demonic goats, or you imbue your vagina with like demonic wolf power, and then your vagina just constantly gives birth to fully grown wolves. And it's really great because the game's actually like really responsive with this. Like if you chose to have a wolf vagina, there'll be part in the game where you send wolves out of your vagina to devour this guy and stuff and kill him and stuff. But then if you have like wolf boobs, maybe the wolf boobs will like growl and snarl at him instead. You know, like it's very responsive in this way, and it's like a really interesting idea of bodies. It's a kind of like body horror monster sex game, which I think appeals to a lot of queer people, actually. We grow up, a lot of us grow up with like society telling us we're like monsters. So like what if we actually like fulfilled that fantasy of being a monster and having our monstrous queerness being a source of awesome power where we can send out wolves out of our genitals to devour people, right? That's awesome. Next thing I want to talk about is how do you do it? How Do You Do It is a game about a young girl who kind of like smashes two dolls together in various positions because she finds sex to be like utterly baffling. And we can relate to this because sex is always kind of baffling. We often think of sex as this very like serious and adult thing, but this game is also kind of a reminder that sex is also kind of a weird and funny thing as well, and I think we need those reminders as well. What I really love about this game is that it kind of starts out as this kind of naive kind of thing. You think like, oh, she doesn't know what sex is, haha, so she's trying to like put these dolls together in these random poses. But if touching someone's foot gives you sexual pleasure, then that's sex. Then you're doing sex, right? This girl is actually a master of sex. She's imagining, inventing new types of sex, all these different types of poses and arrangements between bodies. In this way, the game kind of like comes full circle. You think it's about one thing, but really, she probably has more of an open mind about sex than her parents, probably. And she's so open to how bodies can touch in all these different ways. It's a really great game. You should play it. Another game I want to talk about is Luxurious Superbia. Luxurious Superbia is a game that transforms your iPad into a vagina. To progress through a level, you're kind of like tenderly and gently like rubbing all these like crevices and folds and stuff, and you be really tender with this really complex thing. And then eventually you make your iPad climax and stuff, and it's great. There's actually like there's all these like different types of like levels here actually. Your iPad can try on all these different kinds of vaginas, and eventually your iPad might have like a favorite vagina that you'll use to play with it and stuff. And in this way, it's kind of a very fluid kind of technological body sex game. And it's constantly changing and surprising, and I really liked it. Another game I want to talk about is Triad. Triad is a game about three women who had a bunch of awesome sex, but now they need to go to sleep. So now you have to fit them all on the bed. Each woman has a different body shape and different sleeping preference, and it's your job to accommodate them all somehow. It kind of imagines the bed as a grid, and usually we don't think of like a grid as very like sensual, I guess, or maybe that's just me or something. But here the physicality of this is really beautiful. You move the pieces around, and the women kind of like animate and fidget a little bit. It's really great. And if you're not careful with moving the pieces, they can actually like collide and bump each other out of the way. So you actually have to be kind of like careful and tender with how you're moving the pieces around in this puzzle game. And it's kind of about how these different bodies harmonize as a whole, and it becomes this really beautiful system by the end when you find out the solution. So this is a really great game I like too. And then the last game about bodies I want to talk about is a game called Bientôt l'été. Bientôt l'été is about you're like two half-naked people in the future, and you're gonna play like sexy drunk chess with each other. But you're like so sexy and so drunk that you don't even obey the rules of chess. You just move the pieces however you want. And notice that actually like all the pieces on that board, right? There's only like two colors, and it's just they don't make, if you know how to play chess, that like board arrangement doesn't really make sense. So then when you're moving these pieces, if they don't mean what they usually mean when you play chess, then what do these moves mean, right? It's kind of recasting chess as this kind of very tender, intimate thing where you're sharing like secret meanings between your moves. So maybe like chess is kind of a sexy thing. No? Okay, that's okay. Next, I want to talk about, there's actually a whole genre of like poking games. These are kind of related to body games, but there's just so many of them, I had to give them their own category. The first poking game I want to talk about is I Love You, But You Kiss Like a Girl. This is a two-player game made as part of this game design community called Glorious Trainwrecks. They're really great. The mantra of Glorious Trainwrecks is to just make something so crappy but amazing at the same time. You're just trying to make the crappiest, most amazing game ever. And this is just one of the best train wrecks I've played, where you can move your tongue up and down, and it's kind of a joust, and you're trying to like hit each other with your tongue. And when you and then when you have more momentum than the other player, you can bump them off the screen, kind of. And what's really great about this game is kind of like the randomization. Your roles randomized. Sometimes you'll be a dog. Sometimes you'll be like an anarchist punk. Sometimes you'll be like a dad or something. Sometimes you'll be kissing in a wrestling ring. Sometimes you'll be kissing in the park. It's kind of about how like kissing can take place in all these different kind of settings. Another great poking kissing game I want to talk about is Realistic Kissing Simulator. This is a similar kind of game about kissing, but it's also very different. In this two-player game, you don't necessarily battle your partner. Instead, you kind of move and extend your flexible like tongues around. And there's opportunities to be very tender and expressive. And there's also other opportunities to poke your partner in the eye with your tongue. So it's kind of cool. It kind of has both of those sides of it. It also has a really great attitude about the consent of kissing. In that screen on the left, before you can play, you and your partner must consent to kiss each other. And if you end up saying no, the game is totally fine with that, and you don't kiss, and then the game is over, and that's okay. Because it's okay to not kiss people. Who knew? Next game I want to talk about is a game called Lo-Fi Dick Fight. It's really good. This is a two-player competitive game where you kind of you and your partner try to hit each other's dicks with your dicks. And when you hit your partner's dick enough, their dick literally falls off and you win. And it's just kind of, it has a variety of dick sizes too. There's also a projectile dick mode, which is really cool. It just has really great comedic timing, like just that slight pause when that dick falls down is just great. So that's Lo-Fi Dick Fight. And then this is kind of the same premise. This is a game called Sword Fight. This is a real-life game, real-life physical game where two players strap Atari joysticks around their waist with a BDSM harness, and then you also handcuff your hands behind your back. And then your goal is to poke the other player's button with your joystick. It gets very rowdy. When I played, I snapped my dick off. You can get really physical with this game. And you can see it's pretty gay. It's really fun to be gay in this game. It's always fun to be gay, right? All these different games are about how poking can be, it's this like small gesture when you think about it, right? Such a brief little point of contact, but it's also very expressive and intimate at the same time, right? And it's also funny when you exaggerate how small a poke is and make it very competitive, right? And you're trying to poke each other a lot. It's about seeing kind of like the sexuality and like poetry of every gesture, no matter how small. The next games I want to talk about are kind of games that are concerned with sex as like authenticity and whether the sex is real and the feelings about it are real. First game I want to talk about is a really great game called Sybil. Yay! Sybil is a game about a young woman who meets a guy over the internet and plays an online MMO with him and gets to know him better, and then learns a lot about herself and her sexuality in the process. There's actually like several components to this game. There's her desktop on the left where you can actually like look through her blog posts and selfies and photos. And you actually feel like it's almost like a teenage girl's like desktop. And a lot of men feel creepy when they're playing it. And there's also another part of the game, that's the bottom screen. It's like this very gorgeous, lush MMO, kind of very light MMO game where you're just playing with this partner to like do boss runs and stuff. And then that's how you bond and develop your relationship with him. So many of us have like asserted and like developed our sexuality over the internet. So like, how do you know that person over the internet is real, right? Even if the internet isn't in the way, even in real life, how do you know the person you're with is like being real, right? This applies also to the social bonds we have in our games, right? Are you really my friend, or do you just like me because I can like snipe this boss really well, right? It's to do with our authenticity in all our social interactions, but especially sex and intimacy. The next game I want to talk about is We Know the Devil, which is amazing. Make sure you play it. We Know the Devil is an apocalyptic magical girl horror romance game where three magical girls have to go to this weird Christian summer Bible camp, but it's like a demonic summer camp, Christian summer camp, and they're forced to fight the devil to the death at the end of the camp. And on the way there, you're also choosing how the girls like relate to each other and who they confide to and so on, and how they develop the relationships. The writer of this game, AVB, she's talked about how she wanted this game to reflect her experiences growing up. When you're growing up, you always feel like adults are always telling you everything you're doing is wrong, your choices are wrong, you're doing relationships wrong, you're doing sex wrong. But how would you know, Dad? You're growing up wrong, right? We Know the Devil is kind of about having the courage to say, no, I'm not doing it wrong, I'm doing it right, and this is real. So it's that aspect of authenticity. Fuck That Guy is a great text game where you can sleep with a bunch of different dudes and have sex with them. Nice. You might, is it okay? You might be used to BioWare games where like sex often means like tastefully fading to black and stuff. But here the sex gets very like specific and detailed. Like the protagonist of the game, he's very kind of experienced with sex and he knows how to have sex and kind of like what he wants. And in this game, it's also pretty easy to like have sex. The player character is actually kind of more anxious as to whether he chose the right guy, right? The game is called Fuck That Guy. Fuck this guy or fuck that guy? Did I like choose the correct guy tonight? And whether you can actually like follow through or not. And what happens with that? Should I replug it? Oh. Okay. How do I start the show from this point? I don't know how. Yeah. So in that text excerpt there, it talks about how the guy you're having sex with feeds you fingers, not in your mouth, by the way. He asks if you're comfortable. It talks about how he's rolling the condom over someone else's cock, so you're having group sex, and rubbing your hole. Dragon Age will not talk about rubbing your hole. And that's actually where text is also a very strong medium for sex games. It's hottest in your mind, right? Sometimes images can often be very disappointing when we're talking about sex. The next game I want to talk about is Tusks. Tusks isn't released yet, but there's a demo out. You should play it. It's a gay orc commune simulator where it's kind of about how the ways in which various gay orcs relate to other gay orcs. In this game, you travel with a bunch of sexy, beefy orcs who also believe that masculinity can be a prison. So they're trying to figure out alternate masculinities and how to make decisions as a group and reach consensus and reconcile that with masculinity in a really interesting way. And you also have a bunch of hot gay orc sex, but you also reconcile masculinity with emotion. So that's also a really nice thing too. There's another game called Infidelidad. Infidelidad is a short two-player co-op game about having an affair. One player plays as the boy toy on the left. They're trying to sneak past the husband and using those screens in the back of the room. And then the other player plays as the blonde woman who has to fuck her husband as a distraction so that her boy toy can escape. So each time you fuck your husband with a dildo, the other player has to dash to the next screen before the husband can notice and overwhelm the husband with pleasure. I think I've talked a lot about how a bunch of these other games are worried about whether the sex is real or not. This is a game where you're trying to fake the sex, and the sex is definitely not real. and that's its own kind of thing and maybe pleasure. Next, I want to talk about games that treat sex as like power and are really concerned with sex as like a power relation. First game I want to talk about is a game called Polymorphous Perversity. This game is a JRPG where the battles are sexual encounters. And this game is actually problematic in a lot of ways. It's actually kind of sexist and homophobic, and it's kind of transphobic as well, so beware if you play it. But it's kind of a failure of a game, but it's a really interesting failure, so that's why I want to talk about it a little bit. It kind of helps you realize that sex is not a JRPG battle, and that metaphor really just does not work. In this game, sex is the most tedious grind ever. Endless dungeons of generic interchangeable battles where you're constantly wearing yourself down, but you do it anyway just because you have to. And then you do that to make numbers go up or something. And then you don't really care about your sexual partners in this game. You're trying to like destroy them. And then you don't even really care about your own pleasure either as a player character. It's just a really weird, almost kind of toxic way of thinking about sex, but it's really interesting how this doesn't work, or at least it really didn't work for me when I was trying to play this game. So again, I feel like this game is bad, but it's bad in a really interesting, instructive way. A game that I think that treats power a little bit better is Queer Power. Queer Power is framed like a two-player competitive fighting game where your attacks kind of depend on your sexual pose and gender, and you can also choose your genitals and stuff, and you can constantly change between all these states. So maybe at first you're a person with an erect dick, and then you're a person with breasts and a vagina, and then maybe you're a person presenting your ass to get fucked and stuff, and you can constantly change between all these things, and these are like your attacks or like different like stances. And it's really interesting how you're just constantly trading roles, swapping roles, giving and taking. A round ends when a player climaxes, but tellingly, the game does not say player one victory, right? It just says player one came or something like that. Climaxing first, does that mean you lost or won? The game doesn't really make a judgment about that. Wanting to win at sex is a weird way of thinking about sex. Next game I want to talk about is Consentical. It's an amazing card game. Naomi Clark's also giving another talk, I think, tomorrow, so check out her talk as well. Consentical is a two-player cooperative card game about tentacle sex. The designer wanted to reframe a lot of sexual attitudes we have about tentacles and sex. What would it actually be like to have sex with this kind of body, like really tender, considerate sex with a tentacle? So as you play, you kind of like put down these action cards, and you're predicting what your partner will do, and you're trying to synchronize your deck building. It's like Netrunner and like Magic, but like about tentacle sex or something. And it's really, this game argues that sex can be very like technical and strategic, but that strategy is about maximizing pleasure for the both of you. And that maybe that's okay, right? Maybe the problem with thinking about sex is like a strategic thing. The problem isn't reducing sex to like a number. The problem is your attitude towards the number if you want to mechanize sex. So this is a very interesting experiment with that, and the art is really gorgeous. I highly recommend playing it or checking it out or buying it when she decides to sell it. Next, I want to talk about a text game called Consensual Torture Simulator. Consensual Torture Simulator is a text game about consensually making someone cry. It's a game about inflicting a lot of pain on someone else, but in a very considerate way. What kind of pain do you think your partner would like? You might start by like slapping her a little bit. Then you might spank her because you're still using your hand. And then while you're working on her ass, maybe you cane her on the ass as well. And as you're doing this, you're kind of thinking about the like routine, like, oh, is she liking this choreograph kind of thing. You also think about your own energy levels as a dominant. Are you getting tired really just wailing on her ass. If you go really hard, you might need to take a break. So it's also about your own limits as the dominant top in this scene. But you're also wondering whether your submissive might need a break as well sometimes. So when you play this game, you have a lot of power, but you also feel very responsible with that power, and you feel responsible for someone else. And then the last game about power I want to talk about is Lady Kill in a Bind. I believe Christine loves showing this at the expo floor, so make sure you go check it out. Is the demo there? Is she? Yeah. Can you play the demo? Play the demo too. So, oh dear, this game. In this game, your identical twin brother is making you cross-dress as him and navigate all his sexy relationships with a bunch of sexy people on a cruise ship. You have to make sure they don't get too suspicious and realize that you are not your brother. So you're constantly trying to think about what your brother would say and play it cool and stuff. And if they get too suspicious, then they punish you. But in the demo, at least, that I played, it's really fun to get punished. It's so much fun to say the wrong thing and get into a lot of trouble and witness the consequences. And this is a game about celebrating submission in this really fun kind of campy way. It's basically one of the few games where you can power bottom kind of. It's really great. Oh, and the scenes are really hot too. That's really hot. And while we're talking about images, I want to talk about sex as images. We've been talking about sex as a power dynamic, or sex is concerned with authenticity, but there's also a lot of games that are more about delivering a sexual image to you, and those are perfectly fine games too, and they also do really interesting commentary about images as well. First game I want to talk about is Coming Out on Top. If you're into men and you haven't played this game, you really should. Structurally, it's a very traditional kind of visual novel dating simulator. There's a bunch of different possible men to pursue. So you talk to them, and if you pick the right choice, you get to unlock certain erotic scenes. And what's really refreshing to me, as someone who hasn't really played that many visual novel games, this is so explicit. I can't believe a game has penetration right there. Right? You won't see that in Dragon Age, no. But this is what sex looks like, right? For a lot of people, they like being penetrated. So how can you ignore that side of sex and pretend it doesn't exist? You can't always fade to black all the time. But what's also interesting to me is that this is kind of stuff is actually kind of old news in the comics world. Comics have been sexy for a long time. It's kind of weird how only now games are kind of catching up with that. This game's also really cool. You can have sex with a fish too. That's really cool. Again, I highly recommend it. There's another game about sex and images. This game is called Striptease. Striptease is a game about deconstructing sexual images. In this game, you're solving this tile matching puzzle on the left and trying to match it with the image on the right. And there's a lot of different games that do this. And as you unlock a different part of the tile puzzle, it hides a part of the outfit in the complete image on the right as well. And there's a lot of weird, if you were alive in the 90s, there was a lot of spyware-filled strip poker games that kind of function like this. And those games usually use photographs of people. This is a game that uses pixel art instead. So here, the body you're looking at is more representational, or not less representational, more symbolic. And as you keep progressing through the levels, you actually kind of go through these consequences of what it means to leer at someone and treat someone as an image or an object or as an assemblage of random fragments of body parts. And this game actually gets very intense. So take care when you play it. But it's also very deep and insightful, I think, about sexual images. This next game I want to talk about is Dark Room Sex Game. This is This is a two-player co-op installation game where two people wave Wiimotes at each other, and when they wave the Wiimote, it moans. So what you're doing is you're taking turns going, right? And what's really interesting is that there's no screen. It's a video game without a screen. And that actually makes it a lot more intimate in a lot of ways. Instead of staring at a screen, you actually stare at each other and like stare at each other's eyes when you're making this remote moan or something. And it's also kind of about how sound can function as an image, right? For a lot of people, vocals are important during sex. Talking dirty can be very important during sex. The right music can be very important during sex. The person who made Consentical, Naomi, she has another game, I forget the name, but it's a game where when you're having sex, the two, or more than two, I guess, all partners included, make a playlist of songs. And the goal is to make a playlist of songs to make the other partners laugh and not be they can't continue having sex anymore. So your goal is to make just a terrible playlist of sex songs and just try to stay in the mood through pure like endurance, and it's really fun. And that's also speaking to the importance of like sound into sex, and sound as an image in itself. Next game I want to talk about is called Seppi's Cum Shot. Seppi's Cum Shot is, hold on, I'm thirsty. Seppi's Cum Shot is kind of emblematic of a lot of like browser sex games where you move your cursor over a part of a body and then you just like shake it a lot and then stuff happens. So it's like a very simplistic kind of animation. It's basically like a delivery mechanism for animations like this. But I think Seppi's Cum Shot is easily like the best of class of these kinds of games. Like just look at that cock. It like becomes bigger than him. It's just kind of amazing. As you like jack him off, also like the chair like falls away and collapses in this weird way. It's really great. I highly recommend playing Seppi's Cum Shot. More sophisticated animations or physics code would not make this a better game, right? And I think that's what's really important and insightful about this game. It's trashy, and trashiness is great. I love garbage. And then the last game I want to talk about is this. It's a mod for Sonic Generations called Rock Hard Cock. It replaces Sonic with an erect penis. The result is utterly entrancing and stunning. I have the video for you. I'm going to show it for you right now. So like maybe I haven't played a Sonic game in a while. They like involve running through like an entire Italian like countryside village, like breaking through windows and like destroying robots. And then when you replace Sonic with a cock, now you have that cock like racing through like Italy, destroying robots and like earning combo points and bursting through windows and stuff at like 100 miles per hour. Oh, now it's confused. Okay, now it goes. And just going so fast, right? Gotta go fast, right? It's so fast. And there's like all these sparkly things happening. And it gets even better. Now you're grinding on this rail. Now you're racing up a clock tower as a cock, dodging all these lasers. And then you get to the top, and then you do like a 360 and you like earn all these points. And now you're running down the side of a clock tower as an erect penis at like 100 miles per hour. Like this is just a very important example, I think, of about how like, you know, like Sonic's okay, but when you replace this with like a penis, it becomes like so much more, right? And this had to happen outside the game industry. This had to be like an unsanctioned, illegal mod someone else made. And then there's like violin music in the background. It's just really like the combination of all these things is just really like transcendent, I feel like. I think it's almost near the end. This should just been my entire talk. I should just play this video and then walk away. I think we're almost near. And then you have to like dodge these bullets. And now it's gonna breakdance for you. So right. That's really important. It had to happen kind of outside of the game industry. The game industry couldn't make something like that. They would get like, Walmart would refuse to sell them if they'd made this. And another really important point, I think, is when you watch this video, you don't need to play this now. You don't need to download this. You probably don't own Sonic Generations either, so you can't play it. Someone made this mod just so they could make this video, right? And this makes for really powerful art, but it's not the best business model, right? Where you don't even have to play the game and you don't feel you have to. But it's really important for this idea about sex and sex images and how they operate in games. So again, I just want to reiterate, another world is possible, right? I just showed you, I think, 25 different games, sex games, within the last few years, made by people operating outside the mainstream game industry. My peers in the game industry are good at many, many things. They're not good at gay sex, though. And all of us, all the people who made all these games, we couldn't wait for that glorious future when the game industry decided to make sex games. We had to make it now. We needed them now. We had to build this world. And we want to share this world with you, but if you want this world to survive, to exist, we also need your help and support to maintain this world, right, and keep making new work. So many of us, we don't make much from these games, surprisingly. So if you buy our work, donate to us, subscribe to people's Patreons. So much of the amazing work you saw doesn't have a huge commercial market, and even just a few dollars makes a huge difference to a lot of these artists. And if you have trouble paying the bills as well, that's okay. At least talk about us, tell your friends about us, tell your rabbi about us, tell everyone about us. In whatever shape and form, we'll accept your support, and it's really important that you support us. Because so many of us are already making all the bold, new, experimental, thoughtful, tender, kind, awful, sticky, sultry, filthy, poetic, kinky, cute, gay, really fucking gay sex games that you deserve. You deserve it, and you deserve it, right? Help us do it, support us, and, you know, rally the troops and wave our banners. Thanks for listening. Bye.